Fancy intro.
Well, hello, YouTube knife people. This is Earth Particle, aka Patrick. It has been a while since I've been around. This video is about the Sharp by Design Apex. And I did a video, just a YouTube short, a few days ago about this. And I was looking on YouTube, and as popular of a brand as Sharp by Design is, and as much as this knife has been anticipated, I have not been able to find any videos, overviews, reviews, or anything on it on all of YouTube yet. The pre-orders started going out maybe the last 2 weeks or so, and I would have thought maybe somebody would jump on a review or overview or something, or at least an unboxing, but I haven't seen it yet, so I took it upon myself to get one out there. So, fair warning, this is going to be a longer video. I've got a lot to talk about with this, so go ahead and strap in and we'll talk about it. First thing, hey, if you see my other stuff, do you like my new lighting rig? I got a new lighting rig a couple months ago, just sat around. I have not used it until today. So anyway, let's do a couple size comparisons before we start talking about the knife in earnest. So this is a full-size knife. It is 8 inches total length. Blade length is pretty much right at 3.5, and so is the cutting edge. The handle length is 4 3/8, and yeah, all of that adds up to 8 inches overall. The weight is 3.76 ounces. So let's do some comparisons. Of course, we got to do the Rat 1. The angle that I'm filming at is much more straight down now than it ever has been in the past, so these sizes should be pretty much accurate. There's the Rat 1 against it. All right, let's go a couple Benchmades. We're gonna do the 940 and the bug out with the titanium scales. Pretty comparable in size to, like, say, the 940 here. The bug out's a little bit smaller, as it is with a lot of different knives. So let's get these guys out of here. Here's the Paramilitary 2. I've started recently getting into more lanyards, just on a few different models, the ones that are big enough where it won't get in my way, and as long as they're tight enough up here and they don't flop around too much, they don't seem to bother me. Still haven't made my mind up permanently about them yet, but there you go. And then here is the Delica. Line these guys up. I'm just going to kind of go end to end. So definitely closer in size to the PM2. The PM2 is like 8.3 inches, so it's a little bit bigger. Recently started doing my own anodizing, and I've been happy with how that's been turning out. This is the Ferrum Forge Archbishop 3.0, another one I anodized. This is with a BGM Knives hollow regrind. I saw Jared Neves had that done on his, and I just had to have that done. I thought that was awesome. A lot of similarities between these two. This knife is also a flipper with a deployment hole, and they're both very similar in length, both titanium. Here is the Oaksworks Osprey, a little bit smaller, another Reate made knife. So we get these guys out of here. Then we have just one more. Another Reate made knife. This is the Pena X Series New Mula. This is the Sons of Liberty Gunworks exclusive with the lava flow fat carbon. It does not come with a anodized pivot color. That's usually just like a satin color, but I anodized that blue. I don't know how well you can see that in this light. But that's about, what, a 7.4 inch knife, something like that. So that'll give you an idea of that guy. So there you go. There's some size comparisons. Let's talk about the Apex. Okay, this is an interesting knife. This knife is available, or will be available, in multiple different configurations. So right here I have a natural titanium with blue inlay, right? And it's a see-through construction on the handle. When we close the knife up, you can see right through to the blade on both sides. And because of that see-through construction, the pocket clip, pretty much the only place to mount the pocket clip is right up against kind of along the spine. And yeah, I thought that was going to be more of an issue. There was something that happened with that. I mean, I'll get more into that here in a minute, but we'll keep talking about the knife and the different configurations. So with this configuration, you have just a standard drop point blade with a very long deployment hole, so that gives you multiple deployments. So this knife, straight off the bat, I'll tell you, it's really fidgety. And if you know anything about Reate's work or Brian's work with Sharp by Design, you know that the detent ramp is beautiful. The action is super snappy, and the lock bar is really easy to push over. All the stuff you normally get with a Sharp by Design knife. So this knife is kind of special in that this is available in a standard flipper like this, but you can also get a front flipper version. So the front flipper has the deployment hole and then a front flipper. And there's also both of those deployment versions, front flipper or standard flipper, available in a Tonto, like a compound grind Tonto blade. I have some pictures, so I'll put them up kind of as we're talking here. But all the different configurations from Brian's Instagram. So you've got a black DLC handle with red inlay, all aluminum. This version and the other version all aluminum, and then this version, and they're both available in both different blade styles and deployment methods. So there's a mix and match across all those different types. So whatever configuration you want, you can get. I did not pre-order this. I found out about the pre-order just after last November when the pre-order had just closed. That's when I discovered that there was a pre-order. So I've been waiting 9 months for this to become a thing and exist in the world. And I knew that I was either going to try to get a hold of somebody willing to sell theirs when they got it in from pre-order, or I was going to try to get one from a dealer. They still have not reached dealers. This whole production has been delayed. I don't know what the story is behind that, but these were supposed to ship to Brian at the end of May or beginning of June. Today is August 23rd, 2022. And the pre-order, the folks who paid in full pre-order have only just started getting theirs, and they have not hit dealers yet. Although Brian did post on his Instagram, I think yesterday or the day before, that he expects to be receiving the remainder. He said any day now is how he put it. So I would expect to start seeing these at dealers, I would say by the first week of September, if I had to guess. That's just a wild guess. I was lucky enough on Reddit to find somebody who was willing to sell me theirs. So I have a little bit of an interesting story with this particular one, but I'll save that for a little later. We'll talk a little bit more about the actual knife first before we go anywhere. So the lines of the design, I think, are really well done. This is basically, and Brian said this himself, and I thought the same thing, this is basically like his custom Void XL in a production version. This is very much like the Void. You've got the deployment hole and the flipper, at least this version with the standard flipper. This is very much like a Void. In fact, I sold my Void so that I could kind of get the money together to be able to afford this. Talk price very quickly. I believe that the price for the natural titanium in all configurations will be $375 at dealers, and the black DLC handle will be $425. That's kind of what I've heard from Brian, so I believe that will be the case. You can see from the pictures that I'll be putting up that both the black and the natural titanium version will both have satin blades and satin pocket clips. Anyway, so you can tell, if I give like a real good close-up here, you can see that all the chamfering on all the edges, the inlay work, everything is so exact and is so well done. It's just like you'd expect from a Sharp by Design. When you see a design by Brian, there's no mistaking that it's Brian's. Here's another interesting part. Right here, you've got kind of this stepped pattern at the butt of the handle. And like with most of his stuff, you have a two-piece construction here, but it almost looks like an integral. It just comes together so well. It's machined so well. Before I get too much further, let's talk about the issues that I've had with this. When I bought this from the guy on Reddit, before he was about to package it to ship it to me, he was giving it a once-over, kind of a last-minute once-over, and he noticed that the clip side inlay was missing both screws. I don't know how well you can see in there, but there's a couple very small screws that screw in and keep the inlay held down. And he found that from factory, from Reate, it was missing both of those. And he swore up and down to me that he did not disassemble the knife and lose the screws or anything like that. He had not taken it apart at all, and he was the one who directly got it from pre-order. So, you know, and I believe him. I mean, I don't know what reason you would have to disassemble a knife and be pulling inlays out after you got it just a day before or something. So I do believe when he says the inlay screws were gone. I contacted Brian. I spoke with him on the phone and told him about what was going on. And Brian was super cool about it. He told me exactly the size of screw I needed and a couple places I could buy them. So just in case anyone else were to get their Apex and for some reason have inlay screws missing, you'll be able to tell, because like with mine, if I kind of rub this back and forth, it would go it would slide just ever so slightly. It's such a tight fit, it's kind of hard to tell, but you can tell. And you know, if you look in here with a flashlight, you'll be able to see they're missing on the one side. So anyway, what I did was I went to knifekits.com and I grabbed a 25 pack of these screws. I don't know how well you can see that in the light. These are 2-56 flathead screws, Torx. They're T6 Torx flathead screws, so 2-56. You can get a 25 pack of them for $2. Oh, I'm sorry, eighth inch length. That's important. So they're the 2-56 flathead Torx screws, T6 size, and they're the 1/8 inch. They screwed into the inlays all the way and were completely flush and flat with the inside of the scale. So they were absolutely 100% a perfect fit. Anyway, so the other kind of big issue, well, not big issue, but main issue I had was on this particular model, the pocket clip. Here, I'm going to stand up so I can get closer in on this. The pocket clip placement isn't a problem for me. Come on, focus. The pocket clip placement isn't a problem. When I hold the knife, I have large to XL size hands. I'm like 6'4". I'm a big dude, so I've got pretty big size hands, and this fills my hand completely, just like, say, like a PM2 would. The pocket clip, you would think, you know, I've had knives in the past where when the pocket clip is situated that high up, it digs into my palm and makes it uncomfortable to use the knife. I have had that issue before. On this knife, it has not been an issue for me. Now, this is an overview, this is not a review. I've only had this for a couple days, and I haven't even really cut anything with it yet. So this is kind of a brand new deal here. I haven't spent a ton of time with this. But this doesn't bother me. I could see a lot of people looking at this knife thinking, well, you know, should I buy it or should I not? And if you're like me, this would be your kind of biggest point of worry before you buy it. This did not bother me. There was one issue with it, though. The edges were not chamfered very well at all. So all the way around the edges, where the actual kind of edge is, all the way around, was pretty sharp, especially at the point here where it's got the upswept tip. All the way around, all sides, you could kind of drag your fingernail in it. We go dink, dink, dink. I mean, it was pretty sharp. So what I did was removed the clip and sanded all of those corners. I started with, I think like 400 grit sandpaper and incrementally worked my way up very slowly all the way up to 2000. And then when I was done, you know, I had some kind of marks from doing all the work, some marks on the flat part of the clip. So I hit the flat part of the clip with like a 1500 and then a 2000. And I don't know how well you can see, but I think it worked out really well. If you look really closely, like under magnification, you can see the edges are more rounded than they were from factory. So I guess you could say this knife has been modified. I mean, I don't know how important that is, like for, you know, if you were ever going to resell it or something. In my opinion, it's absolutely an improvement. And, you know, where it wasn't really a problem for me to hold it before I chamfered that, it feels even better now, because before I could kind of feel those edges digging into right here on my hand. Right here, I could feel it a little more than I do now. It just feels a little more rounded, a a little more natural, a little better overall since I did that work. So that's another thing. One other note I do want to make is the action is great with the stock bearings on this knife. I heard one person on Reddit mention that theirs felt gritty from the factory, but I did not have that issue at all. The only issue I had was the inlay screws and the kind of sharp pocket clip edges. But I did go ahead and install some skiff bearings on this knife. The stock bearings have 10 balls each, so 20 total bearings, ceramic bearings, 10 on each side. If you're going to buy skiffs, you're going to need the 1/4 inch, 16th inch, 13 ball skiffs. So here's the ones you'll need. Here are the original bearings. So there you go. You've got the 10 ball bearings. These are the exact same bearings. These and the skiffs are the same bearings that the Void uses, that the Sharp by Design Void uses. They're the same ones. Just to let you know. So there you go. I don't believe that skiffs really improve action specifically all that much, although they can in some cases. But more importantly, you know, I've taken this from 10 balls per side to 13 balls per side. So instead of 20 ceramic balls total, it has 26 now. So that gives you better edge stability. That's, I think, going to help reduce possibility of blade play, and it's going to give you more. It's going to give you more side-to-side strength in daily use or harder use. So that's what you'll get out of that. Anyway, there you go. So that's the skiff size, in case you were wondering. I don't really have a whole lot I can say about actually using this since it's still so new to me. But what I can tell you is that everything you expect from a Sharp by Design is here. The centering. I mean, that doesn't get more directly down the line. It's hard to kind of get it centered in camera, but that is centered. You have perfect lockup. The lock bar insert actually is locked up a little bit more than it looks like here, but it's maybe 20%. The detent ramp is, I mean, you can't even feel when it goes past the detent ball. You can't even, or, well, in this case, it's a detent nub, not a ball. Brian uses like a little nub, looks like an apostrophe. Can't even feel it. Might as well not even be there. So that's super smooth. You know, I've got only a tiny little drop on each side of the blade of Gunny Glide. I purposefully used very little lubrication on this because I really didn't want any gunk to kind of build up and get stuck to the lubricant in there. So I used very little lube. The hardware is all T8. There's only 2 screws to disassemble the knife, pivot screw and pocket clip screw. To take the knife apart, that's how most of Brian's designs, I believe, are, at least production designs. Yeah, the detent is absolutely great. If you had a mini Tempest, if you know anything about SBD, you know that in February of 2022, the mini Tempest finally was released after a lot of delays. If you aren't into front flippers and you would like to get a Sharp by Design and you have trouble finding an Evo Typhoon or Micro Evo or Void, because those have become very hard to find, people more and more are really wanting to clutch onto those and keep them because they're tough to get a hold of. So this is your chance. This is your chance to get an awesome Sharp by Design knife that has multiple deployment methods, where you have your choice of a front flipper and deployment hole or a standard flipper and deployment hole. So either way, no matter which one you get, you're going to be able to stop a Spidey flick, no matter what you get, front flipper or standard flipper. This is the one to get. Yes, it doesn't have fancy schmancy fat carbon or carbon fiber. It's aluminum, you know, but the way the world is right now, Brian specifically said he did not want to have to rely on some other company to be shipping other handle material, especially after what happened with carbon plate, if you know that story. So he wanted to get a material that he knew he could get a hold of and there wouldn't be delays. And in doing that, he ended up with these aluminum inlays that they look killer. They look so good. I love how Brian is the type of guy who he can look at a situation like that and be like, well, you know, this has not been working out great for me lately. What are my other options? And then he finds, I guess you could call it more of a run-of-the-mill material in aluminum, and then makes it look killer. Absolutely killer. The contouring of this handle is very much like the Void. It kind of swoops down as it comes back. You can kind of see it here. Does this swoop down, which really allows for a really nice grip, especially after kind of chamfering that pocket clip. This really feels great in hand. Oh, also, if you're curious, I measured the behind the edge thickness at 21 thousandths on this. I feel like that's a pretty good edge thickness considering the blade stock. I think the blade stock is about 155 thousandths on this. So, you know, 21 thousandths thickness behind the edge, I feel like is pretty good. Oh gosh, one thing I hadn't even mentioned. We're 22 minutes in, I didn't even mention the blade steel. This is S90V blade steel. Every production knife that I know of that Sharp by Design has done has all, they've all been M390. That's all of the Evo Typhoon iterations and different sizes. That's the Void, the Mini Tempest. All of her production stuff has all been M390. This is the first production knife that I know of that is an S90V. So you get CPM S90V on this knife. Mine came extremely sharp, as you would expect, and a nice even bevel grind from Reate, as you would expect. But yes, this is S90V. How cool is that? I think that's super cool. So, you know, there are Damascene steel versions of this. The pictures I put up should have shown that. There's Damascene steel versions and there's S90V. So all of the different configurations, front flipper, standard flipper, compound, Tonto, drop point, all of them are S90V except for those Damascene steel versions, which I think is sweet. I really like S90V. I don't think it's too hard to sharpen. If you're using diamonds, it's really not that bad. I use a Wicked Edge, so it really works out great for me. I haven't had an issue with S90V in the past. If you're curious about the packaging, it is the standard Sharp by Design packaging. This is the same packaging that Brian has been using, I mean, for as long as, I mean, unless you get one of those hard cases that he had for a while, he's been using these boxes with this foam and this kind of form-fitting foam. And this is all you get. I mean, there's, for me, at least, I didn't receive any paperwork or anything like that. It's literally just the knife and a box, and that's it. Brian has gone on record. I watched an interview with him this past week where he said in the future he is planning on improving the packaging on his knives. He wants to do a little bit nicer packaging in the future. He said he's not sure how that will affect the price or anything going forward, but he would like to do that. I think that's really cool. I don't personally care about packaging that much, but it's kind of nice to have something at least a little nicer. I mean, this is pretty bare bones. His Spyderco kind of does the same thing, just kind of bare bones box. Not that big of a deal, but it's kind of nice to have something nicer, you know? As long as it doesn't cost me an extra like 50 bucks, I'm okay with it. So, yeah, 25-minute video. If I'm being honest, I got through it a little faster than I thought I would. So there's your nearly half-hour overview of the Sharp by Design Apex. I just really wanted to get a video up on YouTube. I had not seen anybody else talk about it yet. The only one I could find when I did a search was the short that I posted. Really surprising to me. So let's see. After having it for 4 days, today is the 4th day that I've had this, and you can see it drops shut pretty well. I gotta hold it kind of, you know, perpendicular to camera, but it drops shut really well so far. It's not completely dropped shut like my Void was. That's pretty good, man. And then here, if I give it even just one decent flick, then it's down. I noticed with this model, you have a little bit more leeway on the pivot. You can tighten up the pivot and not have blade play and still have a little bit more room to tighten on this model. It doesn't back out on me. I haven't had the pivot back out at all on me, but I feel like there's a little bit more room for adjustment on this pivot to kind of get the drop shut where you want it. while still not having any blade play in any direction and not having to worry about the screw backing out on you. I haven't added any Loctite or VC3, no thread locker of any kind to this pivot, and it has completely stayed put after fidgeting with it for 4 days now. So I feel like if it was going to start backing out, it would have already done it by now. So there you go. I guess if I think of anything else or have any other thoughts, I'll post a review later and kind of revise anything I need to say. I'll probably go ahead and just leave it at the overview unless some kind of earth-shattering realization comes to me later. But there you go. Sharp by Design Apex. So far, after just a few days, I'm very, very impressed. I love that it is going to be available in a lot of different configurations. It's not something I've really seen before in the knife world. It is expensive, but if you look at what you're getting for the money, you know, a lot of other places, you're going to pay a lot more for what you're getting here than $375 or $425, as is the case with most Sharp by Design stuff. So, all right, I will leave it there. You guys have a great week and everything. If you would leave a comment, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, since this is so new and I can't really find much of anything. I'd like to hear some comments about what people think of this, what you've heard about it. Just kind of give me your take on this. To me, it's pretty big news in the knife world. Anything Sharp by Design that's coming out, pretty big news. So, yeah, give the video a like and subscribe if you would. I do not know how often I'll be uploading. It's been very sporadic for the last year or something, but yeah, I'll do what I can. All right, thank you guys very much for checking this out, and see you later.